Good to see everybody tonight. I have a few prayer requests here that I was going to announce. Pray for Derek and Tracy as they're traveling, or they will be traveling back home early next week. I know we have different prayer requests, within each prayer band, and then the last few Sundays we've all been taking some time set aside to pray. I talked to Brother Steve on the way to church tonight. He had been asking prayer requests for a man named Seth Ballard, and he had been in Vanderbilt and had surgery. I think he was doing better, and then was doing some spraying on a foiler, somehow turned it over on him, and he's right back in there. So remember him. Sometimes the recovery process takes a while. I'd hate to have to repeat it. Before we get into the lesson nights, anybody got any other announcements or prayer requests before we start our Wednesday night study? Solid. All right. Well, before I go and we get into this, I was going to ask some prayer. Pray for our church. Pray for our pastor. His fever went down 1 degree. I don't know if you all have talked to him or not. Mrs. being here, Liz is doing some better, but it's a long time with a fever, so just pray for him. It's easy to get down, and I always tell him keep fighting. So just pray for him. I know they miss being here, and I know you get tired of being in the house. So just lift them up. But before we study tonight, let's see if Brother Brian would lead us in prayer. Amen. All right, so I'll tell you, sorry about the lesson tonight. On my part, it's just been a struggle, hard to find time to study and get settled on anything. I could have taught an old lesson, and I'd actually had one prepared. We were going to start a study on the Beatitudes that I worked on for a couple nights this week, and I had another lesson I was going to teach Sunday on the seasons of life out of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and last night we got home from town at like 8:30, and God said no. So this is going to be the evidence of that. I feel like y'all get my week a lot whenever I teach, whatever. So I was wondering, I'm I'm stressing, what to study. And last night I get home and I'm talking to my wife and I'm talking to her about the day and just lack of time in a day, lack of time to get anything done. It's just like there's never enough time. I don't have enough time. Maybe I overcommit too much. Maybe I underachieve. I don't know. But it just doesn't seem like there's enough time. So I guess I was doing a little complaining. And to teach or to study is very important to me. And I probably put more pressure on myself than I should. So last night I'm teaching and what to teach on. And I always look at the week that God's gave me. And what am I going through? What am I going through this week that's helping me grow? But what am I going through that God has given me that I could help other people? And maybe not because I'm good at it. Maybe not because I had that situation and it came to me in life and I handled it perfectly. Maybe I handled it terribly. But what have I went through that week? What has God placed in my life that I can come here tonight and talk to you guys about to help you? And it's going to be an upbeat message maybe. So don't take the title or the idea too far. But I want to talk to you now about discouragement. Discouragement is Satan's greatest tool in our life, I believe. You're not going to find that in the Bible. But I believe he can take a little discouragement and do a whole lot of damage. Do you know, if I use the term lose confidence in your swing, do you all know what that means? If you're a baseball player, sometimes you may be strong. You may work out all the time. And you may hit 60 home runs that year. And the next year comes and you hit 20. And you're on course to break that record. And all of a sudden you get in your own head. You don't have any confidence that you're going to hit that ball. You're discouraged. You're down. You don't even want to get up to the plate. That's discouragement. That's how I look at discouragement, okay? We're going to look in the book of Genesis tonight. And it's a quick view into a life that is so encouraging to me. I don't know why. Last night I'm sitting there praying. It's just like, this is just talk about Joseph is what I was hearing. So we're going to look at the life of Joseph very quickly. And we're going to read a lot very quickly. So I pray that you keep up. I would also say going into this lesson, you may be in a great, wonderful season of life. Everything may be going your way. And hey, I've been there. I want to be there again. You may be having everything you want, having your cake, eating it too. And if that's the case tonight, then discouragement's not a problem for you. But guess what? You know somebody else is discouraged. Pray for them and encourage them. Take this lesson as a challenge to be about others. So I get home, and there's a million things to do. You know how it is. You walk in the door, and it's like, my day is fixing to mesh with your day. That's marriage, right? And I'm talking about things going on with me. And I think it's probably clear that I'm tired. And I get done talking, and I'm like, wish I hadn't have said that. I didn't say anything bad. I didn't say anything mean. But you know why I wish I hadn't have said it? I realized I was discouraging. I had come in and I had set the mood and I was discouraging. Marriage, I'm sure you guys are tired of everybody telling you what it's going to be like. Marriage is great, all right? It's great. It's a great God-given first ordinance God gave us. Marriage is a wonderful thing, but it takes work. And there's going to be times where you're both going to be discouraged, and that's when marriage is hard. There's going to be times where one of you is discouraged, and that's hard because you need to feel their pain, but you're not even down. You're just like, what's going on? And there's times where it's just great. But the thing about marriage is when two become one, so two incomes are better than one, is what the world likes to say, right? So when two become one, that's great. Well, whenever that wagon's hitched up to those two horses pulling it, and one ain't pulling their weight, guess what? It's harder on the other one. You're trying to pull the weight of the wagon and yet keep pace with who you're hitched with, right? Then you get discouraged about that. It's easy. It spreads like wildfire. Sometimes in life, I don't care how old you are, from the youngest person in our church to the oldest person, you just feel down. Sometimes you just feel overwhelmed. And you wonder, is it going to last forever? And you know it won't, but yet you wonder that. And you really sell yourself on thinking, this could be forever. Sometimes you just feel like you're doing all you can. I want to talk to you about being discouraged and discouraging others tonight. You get down and you get discouraged about being discouraged. Have you ever been down and felt bad about being down? Like, that's a real thing. It's like, man, I'm just discouraged. And you're like, I'm so tired of feeling this way. Like, why? And you try to pep yourself up. It's not going to work. You're not going to cheerlead yourself. So I felt led last night as I was studying this to teach on this tonight. And I was praying about it. And I did something I really messed up. I prayed to be convicted about it. All right? So I walk into work this morning, and my day changed. I mean, everything that I had planned got messed up. People were calling in. It was just, it was one of those moments where it's like, oh, this is what the whole day is going to be like, And you kind of get down or you get upset. You have no control. And Oliver texts me at like 5:30. He's like, call me. So I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's all upbeat. How's the day going? I said, well, God sure has a sense of humor. I said, I've been praying. I'm teaching a lesson not on discouragement. He's making me download it right now. I said, I'm having to do all this, redo all this. I said, I got to go write a lesson for tonight on my lunch break if I get time. And I got down. I got discouraged before 5:30 this morning. That's possible. Now, it's not bad. It's not the end of the world. My life wasn't threatened. I still have 2 healthy children. I still have a home to go to. I know these things. Don't tell me, because I feel like being down. Let me have my pity party, right? I'm just saying it doesn't have to be the end of the world to get discouraged. Sometimes you can be discouraged over something simple that you know you shouldn't be. But yet the feeling's still there. You can't fight it. You still feel it. You know you shouldn't, but it's still there. I want to tell you a story about a pry bar I got. I got a 4-foot-long pry bar. It's about yay big around, and I bought it whenever we build walls on a new house. You build them on the ground, you set them up with 4 or 5 guys, depending on how tall they are, and you start nailing walls together loosely, if that makes any sense. Then at the end of that day, when all those walls are standing, I'm going to take that pry bar and I'm going to go down into that wall and I'm going to get Brother Rogers come over with a level. He's going to put a level on that wall both ways. We're going to level that wall up. How do I move that wall? I'm going to take that pry bar and I'm going to move that wall. I could move this building with that pry bar if I was strong enough. That pry bar has leverage. I like that pry bar. You can hear me talk about it. You could move a motor. You could take a tire off a combine with my pry bar. It's strong. I've used it to tear out tile, rack walls. It gives leverage. Discouragement is an effective tool of Satan, and it's a pry bar into your heart. Discouragement is Satan's pry bar. I'm going to tell you what. Discouragement is a pry bar into your joy. We all face it. We all struggle with it at some point in our life. Don't sit there and act like you got it all figured out. We all get down. Discouragement is a damaging tool, and it is the most used tool of our adversary. That pry bar is so long and so strong, it reaches so far that through that little crack in your heart, it can reach into your home and into your church and start opening doors. The pry bar of discouragement opens the door. It cracks open the heart to where we might lose our temper. We might become angry. We might lose our character. Discouragement can open the door, and guess what comes in? You lose that temper, some bad language. You may not lose it in a way where you are cursing, but you may lose your temper where you lose your testimony. You may act silly. You may say something while angered. You didn't cuss, you really didn't sin, but guess what? You lost some respect with whoever you're talking to. You wish you could have that moment back. Discouragement, that pry bar, can open your heart to hate and bitterness if it stays open long enough. Discouragement started all that. A little bitty crack on concrete, it's not much. You got a 6-inch slab of concrete, and it cracks every time. And you got this little crack going across. Well, guess what happens over years? That little bitty crack's going to get some grass growing in it. It's going to freeze that winter. And the next year, there's going to be some grass growing in it. And it's going to freeze that winter. And before too long, that big old thick, heavy piece of concrete is going to have a pretty good sized crack in it. And guess what? That's our heart. It starts out with bitterness. It's not bad. But if it stays there long enough, guess what comes? Bitterness and anger. You're discouraged. I'm tired of feeling like this. And other things come with it. Don't get discouraged about being discouraged. Even the best of God's people get discouraged, okay? I believe the Apostle Paul fought discouragement. We can discourage. That's the bad part. That's the bad part about being discouraged, is if I'm down and discouraged, I guarantee you I'm not being the husband, the father, or the brother to you that I should be. I'm not the co-worker or the leader I should be. It affects every aspect of my life. I don't want to discourage anyone. You know, it's harder to spread a good attitude than a bad attitude. It's harder to be encouraging than to be discouraging. I think negativity is like thin water, and it just spreads wherever it's poured out. And a good positive attitude is like real thick, and it moves slow. That seems to be bad. Attitude starts out with a lot of momentum. It starts out running 100 miles an hour versus a good attitude. It takes a lot of time to build up and spread that out. I want to set the stage here, and I just want to read this, and just bear with me because it's probably not going to make a lick of sense. But let's read. We're going to read kind of fast. And I want us to look at someone whom, as far as I can tell in the Bible, didn't get discouraged but had plenty of reasons to. I could have looked at Nehemiah chapter 7 where they were building the walls and Judah told Israel, this is silly. I could have looked at the Apostle Paul tonight and showed you plenty of people who were discouraged in God's Word. But if we want to avoid it, let's look at somebody who handled it the right way, okay? So Genesis 37, bear with me, we're going to cover a ton of ground tonight. Genesis 37, verse 1 through 5. It says that Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. He's hated for being loved. Joseph was hated for being loved. There's plenty of people in the world who don't want to see you happy. I hate to break it to you. There's plenty of people in the world that don't want to see you succeed in life. There's people waiting for you to fail. I know that's hard for some of you to understand. But that's reality. Especially if you're a Christian. That's a reality. Joseph's dad makes him a coat. He can walk around peacocking. Many colors, like oily feathers in the sun. That's how his siblings looked at it. Joseph looked at it as a token of love. Can we honestly say tonight that we're thankful for all the storms and the trials that God brings into our lives? If I ask you, are you thankful for the hard times? You might say yes now, years later. But if you're in one, you just want it to be over. But we grow in the tribulation. We grow in the trials, and we grow in the storm. We can grow in what we should be discouraged in. You know, this is family here, and people that we call friends, brothers and sisters, they've all discouraged. We're all capable of discouraging. So if you're discouraged by someone, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop? Is life over? Just because Joseph wasn't liked by his own siblings, now, did that mean his life was over? You got to get up and go on. That's life. It's not over just because it's not going your way. The sun's going to come up tomorrow, and you still got to go to work. You still got something to do. You still got a purpose. Whether it's going and providing that kind of work, or whether it's going, providing and witnessing. There's work to do. Just because the haters hate, that don't mean you stop throwing the towel. You just work harder. You prove them wrong by doing it God's way. You know, they didn't like him. What comes out of our heart faster than anything else? It ain't love, anger, and hate. If somebody don't like you, you don't have to be around them very long to know it. It's not that they're saying, hey, I don't like you. They're just treating you different. They're treating you bad. You pick up on that vibe. His own siblings in his own house, hey, good night, Dad, I love you. You don't say good night to them because they don't like you. That's what he's dealing with. All right, let's read on. Speak up in verse 5 here. It says, and Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? And shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told his brethren, and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obedience to me, or they reverenced him. I can't say that word for whatever reason. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. All right, so these dreams are prophecy. I'm not teaching this in the literal sense of these verses. I'm making a point about something here. These were inspired dreams. We've all dreamed. It's fun to dream. When we were looking for houses the first time 11, 12 years ago, we would drive around all day Saturday and just look at houses. It wasn't that we could necessarily afford them. It wasn't necessarily that we couldn't. We were just driving around dreaming. Well, do we want to live this far to town? And that's fun. It's fun to dream. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. But how many people have dreams that hadn't ever come true? Every one of us in here. Boy, I sure thought I was going to grow up and be a man and the world was going to bow down to me. I just thought it was all going to work out. I wasn't going to put nothing into it. I don't know how it was, but I'm Jason Henderson. It's all going to work out for me. About 18, I got a tap on the shoulder. Hey, I don't know if we've met, but I'm the world. That's life. Dreams that don't come true can be discouraging. It's fun to dream. It's fun to dream about what may be. But dreams aren't always reality. Okay? We live in reality. We don't live in Facebook dream world where we take pictures in front of other people's house and clothes that we rented for the day and a car that we just stole from down the street. That's a fake world. All right? Fake world. That can be discouraging, but I don't want to get on that rant. Dreams. Things that we want, things that we think we want, and we cannot obtain. Maybe we're not dreaming within our budget. I don't know. But dreams that don't come true can be discouraging. Plenty of people in this world can ridicule us. He's being ridiculed by his own family. They say you can't. They say you won't. They say you never will. They say you never have. They say you never will be. The world's full of pry bars. You walk out that door, you walk in that door, there's a pry bar near. I've probably been a pry bar in your life. I apologize for that. I'm just saying, when you go and you leave and you go to school next week, or you go to work tomorrow, you go to practice, you go wherever you're going, there's plenty of people saying, you ain't, you can't. Plenty of pry bars. Joseph's living with them. His own family. Boy, you're a fool. Son, you really think your mama and me are going to bow down to you? You really think I need you? You're my son. I'm the man. You're just my roof. Plenty of people. Joseph's just sitting here. He's like, well, the dream was the dream. And I told you about it. Shouldn't have, I guess. Plenty of dreams don't come true. So many things that we wanted out of life, we never get. Every one of us in here has wanted something we didn't get. I hope. If you got everything you ever wanted, we need to talk. You might need a whipping. But that's the reality. You get let down, and it ain't a bad thing. It ain't a bad thing, because you're going to end up better. You think you want something, and really God knows what's best. We got to be careful not to end up bitter when we don't get exactly what we want out of life. I'd be scared if you're getting everything you want out of life, because that means you have no adversary. You know, discouragement comes when our expectations don't meet our life. Well, this is what I wanted. This is what I thought was going to happen in life, but it didn't. And what happens? Discouragement. Well, I thought I'd be here by the time I got to this age. I thought I'd have this much money put in the bank. I thought I'd have this many kids. I thought God would do this. I thought God would do that. I sure thought I'd be growing. You thought all those things, but it's not reality. Why are we getting discouraged with something that's not reality? Let's keep reading here. Let's move to verse 18. It says, and when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him, and said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come under his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was with him. Let's just stop here for a minute. His brother, the best brother he's got, is Reuben, whom I believe is the oldest brother. And the best he can do, the most willing he is to stand up for his own flesh and blood. Don't kill him. Let's just throw him in the pit. That's your family. If that doesn't discourage you a little bit, I don't know what will. All right? They see him coming, and they're mocking him. Maybe he can hear him. Here comes the dreamer. Let's get rid of him and see if his dreams come true. Let's just see what's going to happen. They are bitter. They are angry. That is his family. That's what he's dealing with. So it says, and it came to pass when Joseph was coming to his brethren that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread after throwing their brother in a pit, thinking about killing him. And they lift up their eyes. Let's just stop there again. How far will anger and bitterness in our heart take us to the point where we're going to throw our own family in a pit and go over here and eat? How far have we gotten away from God? And I'm telling you, it's that pry bar that opens that heart. You don't intend for that to go that far. That could be any one of us. You got to keep it under control. Any one of us. That's pretty cold-hearted right there. It don't take long to get away from the Lord. I'm just saying, that little bit of discouragement can open up that heart to the rest of that hatred. And they took him and cast him into the pit, which we just read. There's no water. They sat down to eat bread. They lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. So their plan now is, listen, I don't like him. I don't really care what happens to him, but I don't want his blood on me. Let's just sell him to them. Whatever happens, happens. That's not our fault. But at least we're getting something out of it. If I was talking about you like that, how would you take that? You would be discouraged. If you knew somebody thought that low of you, another human being, especially your own brothers, you would be discouraged. So the point of this whole lesson isn't, well, what problems do we really have, especially compared to Joseph? The point of this lesson, keep in mind, is to look and say what Joseph did, and we want to do that, okay? It's not comparing problems. We're never going to get better at life. We're never going to be better Christians, better workers, better husbands, mothers, fathers by comparing problems when we all walk in the door. It's about being better. Verse 28. Then there passed by the Midianite merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. All right, so we got to move quick. Joseph had no control over the situation. Guess what? You're going to get up tomorrow, you don't have any control. I hate to break it to you. That day's going to happen. You're just along for the ride. You pray. You respond. His own family, his own flesh and blood, there's evil and sin in every heart. We've all probably been betrayed by those we love. That's sin in the world, okay? Discouragement comes. We've been betrayed by God's people. Discouragement comes. It's around every corner. You don't even have to reach down to pick it up. It's sitting everywhere. Discouragement is everywhere. It can come from within. It can come from our own family. So look at verse 36. Same chapter. The Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. So he's sold again. The Midianites didn't even want to keep him. Think about that. This guy just got beat up, roughed up, threw in a pit, yanked out of the pit, sold, traveled a few miles, and got resold. Even the slave owners didn't want to keep him. I mean, what self-worth would you have at this point in your life? You're losing confidence in your swing at this point. I'm struggling to get up and go on without getting beat up and going on at this point. Sometimes when discouragement comes, you feel like you have no place, no home, no purpose. Joseph, at least, what we see in Scripture, has not reacted yet to this. He hasn't complained. He hasn't been negative. But then again, what control did he have? Just his reaction. 17 years old, no family now. They just sold him. He's just sold for a second time. Who in the world would give him a chance? Who in the world would ever think he's going to be second in command of the most powerful nation on earth at that time? At that point in time in your life, when you're down and you're getting beat up, you're laying down, you're down for the count. They're up to 8, 9, and people are just walking by. Who's giving you a chance? Do you believe that God can raise you up and it's just, great things are just around the corner? Because discouragement is telling you no, but faith is telling you yes. It's easy to focus on our problems. All right, let's keep reading. Turn to Genesis 39. So he sold into Potiphar's house, and this is where it picks up again. It says, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which he had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph. That's a great saying right there. And he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, an Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass from that time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all he had, and that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. So this is great. Joseph's treated wrong. He gets sold. He's catching a break in life. That's how we're looking at this. And the Lord is with him. The good in him is God. Okay? And Potiphar's like, man, this guy that I bought, the Lord's with him. Everything he does seems to be right. He has a good countenance. I mean, I bought him, but he seems to be a pretty happy fella. And you give him a little bit, and you see God bless it. He gives him a little more, and he sees God bless it. And before too long, he's like, I can't find no fault in him. He takes care of everything. All Potiphar knows is there's bread on the table, is what that reads. Joseph's got everything else. He ain't stressing. Potiphar ain't stressing. It's a good deal. Whatever he paid, it was a good deal. So Joseph's in a decent place right now. So in life, sometimes there's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, right? There's going to be times where things are going really good, and there's going to be times where things are a little sketchy. Joseph goes through some really sketchy times, and now all of a sudden things are looking up. And when the rug gets pulled out from underneath us, when things are looking up, we get discouraged again. Let's keep reading. It says, and it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. But he refused and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath into my hand. There is no greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me, but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against Potiphar? No, he's saying, I don't want to sin against God. And it came to pass, as she spoke to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth. So she calls from the men of the house. Basically, she's looking at Joseph and she's like, how you doing? And he's like, not good. And this goes on for days. You got a young guy, 17, when he was sold, so let's say he's between 17 and 20. He's in good shape in his life. Rising in power in Potiphar's house. Things are looking up. But you know what? You know what's there? We talked about a few weeks ago that we're not reading about tonight? Battle scars. Let's just call them scars. Memory. There's memory of being beat up, thrown in a pit, and sold twice. There's memory of betrayal. You can't erase that. Every single one of us has got a memory. Every single one of us has got stuff we wish we could forget. So you got this guy, everything's looking okay. He's on the upswing in life. Rich woman over here, how you doing? Don't talk to me. Next day, how you doing? Don't talk to me. For too long, she's like, I can't take looking at you anymore. She grabs him up. Joseph could have had something for himself. But in our flesh, we'd be like, man, hard life. If that's the worst he does, no, that's adultery. And he said, I don't want to sin against God. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing that just because things aren't going your way, just because you don't like your situation, just because you were wrong, just because you were born into a poor family that don't have any money, somebody who can't do nothing for you, just because you had it rough, just because things may be looking better, you're still held accountable to God. One way or another. The richest of the rich, the king's son, and the homeless man over here, same accountability before God. Don't get me wrong, the king's got a whole lot more to do because he was blessed with a whole lot more. Still accountable to God at the end of the day. Joseph knew that. Easy to get discouraged. What joy he had in his life. Maybe we look at it like we deserve something sometimes, but I see a great man of character here. Who are you when bitterness and discouragement set in and no one's around? Who are you? I'm not saying you're going to go out and commit adultery, but I'm saying, what are you capable of? Can you stand strong and say no when you think you deserve something or when you need a little encouragement? So something else we see here, and I'm kind of talking for the rest of this chapter. I apologize. We just don't have time. But we see doing what's right, knowing what is right. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Just because you make the right decision don't mean you're not going to be discouraged about making the right decision, because there's consequences for what Joseph just did. Doing what is right, and then this happens, it's not the mercy and grace we're expecting from God. It's not the reward we're expecting from God for making the right decision in our life. In this situation, we can get discouraged just looking at how good other people seem to have it. Potiphar had it all. Joseph could have got discouraged saying, man, Potiphar's got everything. He could have been bitter toward Potiphar for buying him and took his wife. That's where discouragement will take you. He's not discouraged, guys. Who in here would be? Every single hand would go up. God, I did everything right. God, why am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Where's the reward for my great behavior, Lord? Where's my star at the end of the week? Why am I discouraged? Why am I getting thrown in jail for saying no to adultery? For saying no to sinning against you? I tell you what, we don't see Joseph failing about this, but I think it's a fair warning while we're talking here. Satan likes to get us busy. He likes to keep us going all the time. Talking about not having any time, talking about being tired. I mean, some folks just got more time than other folks. But I tell you what, he'll wear you out. He'll ride you. He'll try to take the fight out of you. He'll burn you out. He'll wear you out physically, mentally, and spiritually. He can burn you out in church. And it can lead to your heart being exposed to that pry bar. Sometimes being busy is not a good thing. On that note, what a difference a good night's rest makes sometimes. Sometimes things just look better in the morning. Discouragement seems to fade with the sunlight the next day. What a difference honest prayer makes when you just pour your heart out to God, or getting in the Word and looking for encouragement. Those are difference makers in life. All right, let's read on here. Let's jump down to verse 20. It says, and Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not at anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made to prosper. Joseph finds favor again. We taught that lesson a year or two ago, I think, where God gives us favor with men. Joseph's here, and Joseph's just being Joseph. He's just being a godly man. Being a godly man don't mean you're going to get favor in the world, okay? God's giving him favor. He's just doing what's right. Oftentimes, doing what's right makes things harder. You know what happened when Joseph was doing what was right? More responsibility kept coming his way. Doing what's right might mean more responsibility keeps coming your way. If you don't have any responsibility, let's talk, because you may not be doing right. That's what I just said. There's a responsibility with doing the right thing. So this is about halfway through the problems that we know about what Joseph goes through. You know, being betrayed, being sold, being thrown into prison for not doing anything wrong, and then being betrayed again for the 2 dreams that we're, Lord willing, we're going to try to get to in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So we're about halfway through. This is about the part where most of us fail. About halfway through. Because we're losing energy, we're losing momentum. We fought all we can fight. We're really probably doing it with our own strength at this point. And he's halfway through the problems of getting to where God wanted him to be. Things look good when the car's new, when you ain't made that first payment yet. When the marriage is new, things look good. But when it gets hard, when we start to take things for granted, when you get in the daily grind, it's easy to get discouraged. You're tired, and it's just like one more thing, and then one more thing, and then one more thing. And before you know it, you're carrying about 80 pounds of one more things on your shoulders. That's life. And it gets you down, and it gets you discouraged. I don't know what to do. We got like 3 pages of notes left. Let's hasten through just quickly. Genesis 40, let's read the first 4 verses. It says, "It came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt, and Pharaoh was wroth against 2 of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. He put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued to season inward." So Joseph found favor with these 2 guys. God gives us favor to people. It's not because you're awesome, okay? Pray for favor every day with people. I'd recommend that if you don't. Just pray God gives you favor in people's eyes. And maybe not so you can get a raise and be president, CEO of whoever you're working for, but maybe just so you can be a witness. Pray for favor. So the rest of this chapter, there's 2 dreams. Okay, these 2 guys that just got thrown in prison, they have these dreams, and they want to know what they mean. And they turn to Joseph, and Joseph answers them. And then in verse 14 and 15, he makes this one simple request. He says, "But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house." He's saying, I want out of jail. You know I'm a good guy. We've been hanging out for a year. I answered your dreams. Remember me. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. All right? So he makes this simple request. And in verse 23 it says, "Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him." Being forgotten, broken promises, people that pick on the situation after the fact, after the decision's been made, that can be discouraging. In times of trouble, when we're down, when we're discouraged, we can be used. We still have a job to do. Joseph's in prison, working. He found a ministry in prison. What gives a man the ability to suffer through things like that? God's mercy and grace. I think Joseph had an extra dose of humility given to him. At what point did Joseph complain about these situations? At what point did things start piling up on his shoulders, that weight? It seems like a lot of time in our life, as friends with you all or as spouses, we tend to carry invisible weight, is what I'll call it. I come in and I've got this on my mind, but nobody else knows it. And then I'm like, well, this was going on. And Stephanie's like, I didn't know what was going on. and then she's got it, and then my kids come in with it. We got these things, we got these struggles, we're having these thoughts, these prayers, these doubts, whatever it is, and maybe we're the only one who knows. We haven't communicated that. Those things pile up, those things add weight. This kingdom, the most powerful nation on earth at this time, was fixing to be in his hands, and he didn't know it. He's in prison. So I tell you, don't quit now. Don't stop fighting. Don't stop having faith. Joseph kept on keeping on. Discouragement often comes when we feel let down. It is when we are let down because we put our hope or our happiness in man. Now, he didn't get down here, but you know why I would have got down? Because I would have been mad at them for not doing what I asked them to do. You let me down. God gave me this ability and I wasted it on you. You get discouraged when you put your faith in man. Discouragement comes a lot. Any hope put in man or man's word has the potential to lead to discouragement. So in verse 23 we read, they pass him. It's easy to get down. We want instant success, instant recognition in life. We get discouraged when we don't get it. Seems like there's people just waiting for you to fall. They're waiting for you to fall so they don't get their feet dirty. They're going to use you to cross the puddle, you know. All right, let's look at Genesis 41. We'll read a few verses and we'll close out. Genesis 41, verse 37. It says, "And this thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in his eyes all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is?" His fame was God. Okay? What's your fame? How are you known? If I pull you out of prison, I'm not saying, this is a guy who's in prison. I did all this for him. Pharaoh pulls him out of prison. He said, have you ever seen anybody like him, whom God is with so much? What a great thing to be said about somebody, right? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God has showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphaphini, and he gave him to wife Asenath, and the daughter of, I'm going to say Potiphar there, priest of On, and Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. There's a lot here. Life's looking better, okay? Betrayed, thrown in a pit, sold twice, kicked out of his master's house because he did the right thing, thrown into prison, stayed in there for over a year, betrayed by the two guys he helped. And then he's needed, and he's pulled out of prison. He comes before, great sermon I heard a couple years ago at conference. He shaved and got ready to meet the king. We won't go into that tonight. But he prepares to meet this king, and he's not bitter when he gets there before Pharaoh. He's not saying, you dirty dog, I've been here the whole time. Where have you been? All this is going on. Second command of Egypt. Guess what? We talked about it already. He's still got scars on the inside. You know who he's missing? His family. That can be discouraging. He looks like he has it all. You may look like you have it all. You may be discouraged by looking at somebody and you're like, man, that guy, that girl, they got it going on. Everything they do seems to be great. Man, they're second command of Egypt. Have you heard about Joseph? On the inside, he's like, man, I miss my dad. My brothers threw me in a pit. I got sold twice. Not even the slave owners wanted to keep me. I wonder what Potiphar thinks of me. That can be discouraging. To stay encouraged, we got to keep serving. He was there to be used, not to be focused on himself. We forget that every single day. When you get up in the morning, you look at the mirror before you leave the house, you need to write. Don't focus on yourself on it, okay? Last time you need to look at yourself. Well, you say, Jason, God had a plan for Joseph, and that's how he made it through. What plans, what great thing in your life does God have just around the corner? You don't know, and I don't know, but God does. You may be second command, or you may be in the prison next week with a baker. I don't know. You don't know what it holds. Joseph encouraged himself by helping, by being there for others, by serving, and by staying busy. If you're down, if you're discouraged, do something for somebody else. I promise you, you'll start feeling better. Do something for God. He was a man of character. That's how the jailer and Potiphar liked him. He was a man. He was a man of character. Joseph was a great servant. So questions, and we got one page of closing. I'm sorry we're going over. What do we have to be discouraged about in life? And we could say nothing. We could be like, man, I don't have that bad. But literally, we already said this. You may not have that much to complain about compared to other people, but you can still get discouraged, right? Rich man has $1 million in the bank account. He loses half of it. Poor man's got $100 in his pocket. He loses half of it. You both just lost half your losses. It just seems worse. But to the poor man, that $100 is all he had. Just saying, we all deal with discouragement. But it's not about us. What a witness Joseph was. He looked crazy. If you think about his situation, he was probably mocked. What kind of guy is this happy in prison after Potiphar throws him in jail? And he's lied about. He's not even worried about his own reputation. You ain't going to meet many men that ain't worried about their reputation, I promise. It's easier to discourage, it's easier to show discouragement than encouragement. Joseph had this uniqueness about him that he just rode with it, man. He was just a man of faith. I wish I had more of that. I wish I had any of that. God gave Joseph favor with men, but it seemed like everyone was against him at times. He goes to Potiphar, he goes to jail, he finds favor. Two guys, and we're like, pray for favor, but guess what? Everybody else was hating on him most of the time. It was a struggle. That can be discouraging. You know, I'll say something and you're going to go, duh. But all we need is the Lord. But why can't we see that at times? Why do we think it needs to be more? Satan hears that trap close. He hears that. He set that trap out in your life. He hears it. Spring close. And he knows when you're discouraged. He knows when that pry bar, he's going to get it out. He's like, oh, it's prime for the picking. And he opens that heart because we didn't get up and put on the whole armor of God that morning. He springs into action. He knows the level of faith left in your tank. He's just waiting for it to get low. That's a reality. That's our adversary. He knows when your family's at its weakest. Unanswered prayer can lead to discouragement. Discouragement comes when we take our eyes off God. We focus on our fears, things that are out of our control. If you're praying and God hadn't answered your prayers, you're down. How's your faith look when your prayers aren't getting answered? It's easy to have faith when God's giving you everything you ask for. Harder to have faith when you're having to wait on it, right? Discouragement can steal joy and faith that brings us into fellowship with God. Unanswered prayer can be discouraging, but it shouldn't be, guys. Keep praying. 6th lap, 7th day, the walls are fixing to fall. Keep praying. Don't get discouraged. Joseph never made his life about him. He was calm. He was focused. He was always serving. God brought him there. God would move him from there. You know, some of the things in life I thought would lead to my biggest discouragement led to the biggest blessings. I just didn't want to go through the trial to get them. So if you're discouraged, it may not be a bad thing. You may be refining right now, and great things may be coming, okay? There's a cure for discouragement, and that cure is work, service, and obedience. Joseph adapted and served God wherever he was planted. The burdens, the things that seem too big, the discouragement in your life, have you prayed about it? Because God's bigger than all that. What is he teaching you in that moment? Have you prayed honestly about those things? I mean, poured out your heart to God and told him how you felt about those things. Not just say, well, you look into this. Praying honestly. Pray to be used where you are. Wherever you're at tomorrow, pray to be used there. You know, this morning I told my guys, we got a bunch of stuff changed up on us. We had a terrible job to do. I mean, guys, I know it's hard. I'm going to go in there with you. We're going to bring attitude and effort. Sometimes the problems we have is just about our outlook. If I'd went in there and said, guys, this is how this started, this is what I had planned, and they did it, their attitude would have followed my attitude. Somebody got to step up and say, it's going to get hard, it's going to get rough, but we're going to get through it. You know, there was a time in my life where I would have probably stood up here and told you each day's a battle. If Monday through Friday you have 3 days of victory and 2 days of defeat, you're having a good week. I would have said every day's a battle. But I'm telling you, the older I've gotten, God showed me more and more. Every minute, every hour is a battle. You may win a victory before lunch, and you may lose the war, it feels like, before supper. But we got to be thankful in the moments of the day. I don't like saying be thankful for each day. Be thankful for each minute, each moment of each day. Because it may start out great or it may start out terrible and end great. You don't know. Be thankful. Don't be discouraged. God sees what we don't. Victory may be around the corner just like it was for Joseph. You know, you may be in a valley or you may be on a mountain, but I'm going to tell you what's happening. One day you're going to be in a valley. And you may be so low in that valley, you may be so small that you can't even see the mountain anymore. It's hard not to see a mountain. That's how low you sink. God knows where you're at. He knows where you're at, and he can get you back up there. Lastly, in closing, I have one question for you. Are we doing anything that causes discouragement to others? How can we be better? How can we not go to prison and make it about us? How can we not be sold into bondage and make it about us? How can we get up and be men and women, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, leaders tomorrow, and not make that about us? I could call every one of you guys tomorrow and discourage you before breakfast. The hardest thing for me to do would be to call you and encourage you before breakfast. It's easy to discourage. So what are we doing? What little things are we doing that might be a stumbling block to others? I apologize for going over. Brother Matt, you want to lead us?